hand in the community. We're thankful at this time for those who have served and are serving to defend our freedoms and our rights to assemble and to speak up. We're thankful to thee for this free nation, and we're thankful for those that are serving and have dedicated time for this meeting in this community and for their efforts and expertise they bring. We're thankful for all of our blessings. We express our gratitude to thee and invite thy spirit, and do it in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Norm. We will do the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be provided by Counselor Shannon Ellsworth.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As indicated on the screen, a required public hearing will be held for certain agenda items prior to council action. After each such item has been presented, time to comment will be provided for all those who wish to speak. For items that do not require a public hearing, public comment will still be taken following presentation of the item, but will be limited to 10 minutes. At this time, up to 15 minutes have been set aside for open public comment period, which is intended to allow comment on matters that do not appear on the agenda. Persons who speak during this time to an item that is on the agenda will not normally be afforded a second opportunity to speak during the comment period specific to that item. During any public comment period, each speaker will generally be limited to 2 minutes. Due to noticing requirements, no formal action will be taken in this meeting on matters that do not appear on the agenda. Those with comments are invited to approach the podium. Those participating on Zoom will need to use their raise hand feature to indicate they wish to comment. The chair may choose to alternate between in-person and online commenters. Please begin your comments by stating your name and your city of residence. You will have 2 minutes to speak. Do we have any public comment at this time? Please state your name and city of residence.
Yes, my name is Lowell Anderson. I'm a retired oral and maxillofacial surgeon here in the Valley. Lived here for about 50 years, and I would like to first begin by congratulating both the council and Mayor Kaufusi for the wonderful job that is being done in managing this fabulous city we live in. I had my first experience at the airport a few weeks ago. I could hardly believe it, but anyway, congratulations to the great work you do. I'm representing a neighborhood, and a number of them are here with me, my neighbors. I think we have a problem and a concern that I think you're aware of and have dealt with it in the past, but I don't think you realize the magnitude of it now that we're now addressing or experiencing, and that is the population of deer that are increasing. I live up on Foothill Drive. Mayor Kaufusi knows exactly where I live. We spend a lot of money, all of our neighbors, in trying to make those beautiful homes and the yards, as we've been encouraged to do. And I think as a city, you recognize that, because I notice my taxes keep going up significantly. So I'm figure it's because we're trying to make the homes nicer and nicer. But the deer don't agree with that. And it's the problem really has become exacerbated because of the size of the population. These are not wild deer that are coming down from the mountains. These are deer that have been born and bred right here in the valley, and they stay up against the mountains because that's where there's more foliage for them in close proximity and, of course, less traffic. But what has increased significantly that we never had before, I used to live on Paiute, which was against the mountain. Now I'm against Foothill, against the mountain, is that for all the years I've lived here since 1976, there were no coyotes there. Now there are packs of coyotes behind us, which I grew up on a ranch, and so that's not been a big significant problem and a real concern to a rancher, because they don't really bother cattle. They will small sheep, but they certainly do have an
Okay, try and concisely just give us your last bit.
How about letting me use one of the 2 minutes of some of my others that are with me? Okay, I'll be concise. So we have, the coyotes are not as big as issue, but we now have cougars. And I don't know if you noticed that. So in the last 2 or 3 years, we've had a significant increase of sightings of cougars. One of them right next to me and my neighbor, John Schmidt, hiding under a bush. One of them with your previous chief of detective, Richard Healy and Rick Healy. And he was having an outdoor barbecue with his family and in a summer evening last year. And a cougar with all his grandkids and things, and a cougar came and leaped right over the top of them and headed to the mountains. Now,
Okay.
a cougar is a predator.
Yep.
And so they really don't care what you think if you're edible. That's what their main concern is. I'm not as concerned about dogs and cats because that's not my field. But I am concerned about kids, grandkids, and what can happen. One of my friends in California, his wife was attacked by a cougar on their mountain walk. And so I think we need to recognize the significance of this problem, particularly if you didn't know about it, you do now know about it. Something needs to be done. And I think it's a simple solution, and you may or may not like it, but I'd like to just tell you what that solution is. Again, these are not wild animals, they're domestic, and they're increasing significantly. If we hire expert hunters, they can be easily shot with a .22 into the head, not a large bore rifle. They can be taken to Ford's processing plant and processed. I just went down to the Food Coalition and had that tour, and I came away thinking, what can I do to help these people who are hungry and starving, and maybe starving is not the right word, but very hungry and looking for ways to take care of themselves in that.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
That's a way of solving this problem.
Okay. I know personally, I can't speak for everyone, but I have not heard of this yet. So I'm grateful that you came today. And if you can please leave your email with our staff over here, that'd be really helpful. Yeah. And any other public comment?
Yes, I think you will have some more.
Thank you. And can we get the time rep here so they can see it?
It's there.
Okay, great.
My name is Jeff Kimball. I live at 2998 Foothill. I've been on Foothill for over 30 years, and the herd is probably the greatest I've ever seen it. I've been on Lowell's property. I've seen like 12 at a time, and you walk up to them and they don't even scare off. I'm in favor of any safe and humane way to thin the herd. I don't want to eliminate the herd. I like the deer, but I think we've just hit a critical number and a need to thin it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will speak to this at the end when you guys are all done, okay?
Provo, and I too live on Foothill Drive, and I think 2 nights ago I counted about 15 of these deers running down the street towards Rock Canyon Park. So I can come and back up what Lowell just said. There is an infestation of deer right now, and I feel like we're in their backyard, but there's obviously a point where it gets to be too many. So I'm here to support Lowell and anything Provo can do to help us. The best city in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Coleman, live at 2822 Rolling Nose Drive. I really love deer. I mean, I'm a hunter. I hunt all the time and around anyway. But the deer come and go. But the last couple of years, man, there is a lot of deer. I mean, there's way too many. And we're all of us, the neighbors, we're living in their home. I realize that. But they need to be thinned out. I don't think any of us want to kill them all. But when it gets to be this number, there's a lot of deer, and something needs to be done. And there are simple ways of doing it. But anyway, I hope you guys can come up with something. Let us know what you're going to do, because it's if they were in your backyard, I think you'd start complaining too.
Thank you.
They eat a lot of stuff. So anyway,
Thanks. Any more comments? Any more deer comments first? Oh, he's coming.
I won't be long. I'll just confirm what they've already said.
Thank you.
I've lived in my home now for 49 years. It's almost ready to.
We need your name. I'm so sorry.
Merrill Bateman.
Oh, hello, Merrill.
And My family's gone, so I'm not so worried about the deer from that standpoint. Although every year I replace roses and flowers and bushes, and I'm a little bit further from the mountain than Lowell in that, and it shows up in terms of the number of deer. If I have 3 to 5 on my property, he has 9 to 12. They come to him first, and then they scatter out across the rest of the community in that area. But something does need to be done in order to, one, help the deer, I think, but also to help the families that are living in that area and not wait until there's some kind of a catastrophe before we move on it.
Thank you,
Thank you.
McKay. Anyone else on the deer?
Stan Jensen, Provo. I'll be very brief. I'm just supporting what's been said already. And also I've noticed this in other areas, not just this one location. So I think it's a broad.
Yeah, I've seen him in the foothills too. Okay, in regards, was there another deer comment? No? Okay. Well, we will address this. We can talk about this in leadership this week, but I just want to give you a little history that last year, wasn't it, George? Was it last year that we lost we used to have, maybe it was 2 years ago, we used to have a contractor we worked with who did work with deer problems and, you know, certain ones that were coming too close or having issues or something, you know, thinning out, like you mentioned. And he stopped doing that business. It wasn't worthwhile to him financially, I believe, and he was just getting out of the business. I don't know if he's retiring, but we couldn't find anyone to replace him. We did look for people to replace for that position, couldn't find it. So we kind of been doing a wait and see. And I actually have a file on my computer just for deer complaints, and I have one. So this is good to get this information to find out that it is becoming an issue in your area. So we will address it and we can follow up with.
Chair McKay, could I also
Yes.
make a comment about
Yes,
the history
please.
of that? In addition to that, in addition to what Chair McKay was sharing, in order for Provo City to operate a deer thinning, an urban deer thinning program, we actually have to have a permit from DWR. So we have to have a permit from the state. Their regulations that they have about getting a permit have changed quite a bit over the years. And that was part of what led to the contractor not being willing to do it anymore, because the regulations from the state became so prohibitive and restrictive that he felt like the program wasn't working anymore. And in fact, when our program disbanded, we reached out to the other cities that had programs, and they were all disbanding their programs too because of the changes in the state regulations. That's not to say that it's not possible to reinstitute it, but it's actually a lengthy process where there are certain time windows in which you have to apply for the state permit. And even once you have the state permit, they only allow culling the deer during certain periods, which our past experience suggests is not actually the period when we need to cull them. So there are some legal challenges based on state law, but we can discuss those more in leadership and look more into what it would take to renew it.
And it might end up being something that we need to take to a state level and advocate. We'll have to see. If you'd like to make public comment, you can come to the desk and you have 2 minutes. Just give us your name and your city of residence, please.
My name's John Schmidt, and I'm on the same street as Lowell. I'm
You're the
Lowell's
piano
neighbor.
player.
Yeah. And when you said that you've only had one complaint about deer, I thought it would be helpful to just say that living on that street, we've seen it year after year also. So I'll just add my voice. And we were just with some neighbors that live 2 streets down, and they said that they called and the police came and shot one of their deer, and it was on Halloween. I don't know if you heard this incident, but it shook blood all over their backyard, and they had to run it, chase it down the street. So I guess I'll add 2 other incidences too.
And Joe, that's a good point. We can pull police records, complaints, right? Because we're getting, when I talk about complaints, I'm talking about complaints emailed to the council that I've received.
Awesome.
So there's other places we can look.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You're very good on the piano too. All right, any more public comment? Hello, Name and city of residence, please.
My name's Bradley Day. I am a resident in Provo in 5th District, specifically along 800. A couple of months ago, I came before you all to share my concerns about a trash service that was coming at hours of the morning before the noise ordinance permitted. And I just wanted to dive back into that again to share that as far as I can tell, I haven't seen any changes. They still come by to just share a brief recording. They come by, and this was September 7th at 3 a.m. in the morning, 3:11 in the morning. And it's not a one-off instance. They come multiple times a week between the hours of 3 a.m.
Okay,
to
it's not
6:30.
Provo City. Do you know what company it is?
Yeah, Ace Disposal and Recycling.
Okay, I'm gonna have you give
And I did share it with them last
today.
time.
Yeah, but do it again for us, please.
Will do.
Thank you.
Yeah, they keep on doing it. It's difficult to get a good night's rest, to handle all the comforts of living here. Makes it difficult, frankly. I've had others who have voiced this concern as well. I just chatted with other residents. They haven't brought it forward to council, of course, but when I was last here, after bringing it to council, I went and brought it also to code enforcement, who I had called beforehand and left this notice with, and there had been no follow-up. There had been no formal filing, and I had started to follow through with somebody and hadn't yielded anything. The officer who I reached out to was kind enough to start working with me, but I haven't heard from her for about a month now. So I just like some responsiveness. Yeah, again, it's a trial to just constantly be woken up by these services. I'd reached out to them privately as a citizen, but they would continue to service other areas. So I'm hoping that y'all can resolve something. I'd appreciate it immensely. I know they work along 700 and 800 all up and down the way, and it would make living here more bearable, a place where I'd want to live. Thank you.
I'm sorry you had to come a second time, but I thank you for coming a second time. And if you could again give your update, the info again to them, to our staff, so we can follow up with you. All right, any more public comment?
Hey, my name is Jake Holdaway, and I'm from Vineyard. And I just want to thank the vast majority of the council that has come and done Wakara Way. It's a tour between Vineyard and Provo, and it's a hope to end a 130-year-old lawsuit and to connect the Provo River Trail to the Saratoga Springs Trail. And second, I want to commend you guys for voting a while ago to vote against LRS to send a symbol or a signal that you were against that island project. About a year ago, there were documents that were leaked that were given to my family to help us understand that Vineyard City Mayor had been involved in the LRS WIFIA loan without the knowledge of my family or any of the landowners or of any of Vineyard City Council at the time. I asked the Vineyard City Council that had just stepped down if they had known about this massive financial involvement, and they came forward and said they were not involved. That's Councilmember Chris Judd and Nate Riley. Since that time, the Vineyard City Council had gone quiet about that. Now, why is Provo connected? Provo is connected because about a month ago, I was also sent the new grandma emails about the Lake Authority being connected to the $400 and $900 million WIFIA loan.
What
through
loan?
The WIFIA loan through the Lake Commission. I followed up with almost every Lake Commission member at that time, and nobody knew about that loan. Mayor Brad Frost, Chris Kanye from Lehigh, and many others went on the record of not knowing about them, about Eric Ellis of the Lake Commission supporting that. This has caused some major problems, family, and I just want to bring it to your attention. This coming Friday, there is a Lake Authority meeting, and I know you guys are all against it, but this isn't to be vindictive. It's just to find out why was the Lake Commission connected to this, and who asked Mayor Fulmer and Chris and Eric Ellis to be involved in those loans. It's not that they did it, it's that who asked them to be a part of it in the legislature, and why were they? So we have an opportunity this Friday, and I just want to get to the bottom of it. because I want to resolve this 130-year-old lawsuit and I want to get a trail, and it's not going to happen until we know what happened. So thank you.
Thank you.
Let me just say one more thing about the Utah Fish and Game. I've got a lot, I've never met a bigger bunch of fat-headed bureaucrats in my whole life. I mean, they'll just say no. They don't want to be bothered by anything. They don't want to know what's going on. They just say, no, no. Then they don't have to worry about it anymore. If you guys have some kind of an influence, please try and do it. There's so many ways to kill a bunch of deer humanely. And like I say, I love deer. I've hunted all over the bloody world, shooting stuff and killing stuff and trying to do things the right way. But that's part of my business. That's kind of what I do. To kill a few deer, it's better for the deer. The deer down here in the valley just eating, they're eating at McDonald's.
We'll address it. We'll address it and get back to you guys.
Anyway, it needs to be done. And if you're going to take the word of the Fish and Game, you might as well just skip it, because they're not going to cooperate. It won't.
Thank you. All right. Any more public comment? All right. We are going to close public comment. Our first item of action is the November 2023 Employee of the Month, and this will be presented by Mayor Kafusi and Brian Jones.
All right, Chair McKay, Vice Chair Whipple, and members of the Municipal Council. Today, we have another exciting opportunity to recognize an employee who has demonstrated exceptional care for an exceptional community. I'm happy to introduce our City Attorney, Brian Jones, who will be presenting November's Employee of the Month award to an outstanding individual in our legal department. And on that note, I'll give the floor to Brian.
Thank you, Mayor Kafusi and council members, for having this program to recognize our outstanding employees. It is with much appreciation for the work she does on behalf of our department, various departments throughout the city, and for the citizens of Provo that I recognize Karen Walker as the November Employee of the Month. Will you please come up, Karen? I had to get her up here before I keep embarrassing her. Okay, here we go. And if any of this is, if you're upset about any of this, talk to Cecilia.
Oh my gosh. Oh no.
Karen grew up in American Fork. She is a loving aunt who very much enjoys spoiling her nieces to no end. She is proud of her Native American heritage as a descendant of the Zuni tribe. She loves to travel, especially to locations that involve time on a beach, having traveled most recently to Europe and the Cayman Islands. Karen loves K-pop, room temperature Coke, and yummy desserts. Karen has been employed with the city since 2014, initially as a part-time employee, and then for the last 7 years as the executive office assistant, supervising the support staff involved in the criminal function of the city attorney's office. She goes above and beyond in her own work and helps the entire team to be more successful. She is always willing to assist others when asked or needed. As a supervisor, she truly cares for the well-being of those she supervises as well as other coworkers. Karen is well respected by her colleagues throughout the state. She currently serves as chair of the Utah Prosecutorial Assistance Association, helping to plan conferences and supply resources to train Utah's prosecutorial assistants. Karen is a valuable member of the Provo City team and is an absolutely integral part of the city attorney's office. She is a hard worker, fiercely loyal, a great friend, and she is very deserving of this Employee of the Month recognition.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Take a picture.
Okay.
Brian, you should be in this picture.
Like going up here.
Okay.
All right. To all those from legal, you do not have to stay. All right, next we're going to go to a resolution requesting recertification of the Provo City Justice Court by the Utah Judicial Court. And this will be presented by Rhiannon Newton.
Good evening. I am stepping in for John Bourget. He had a conflict, but we are just presenting for the resolution requesting recertification. This is pretty routine. It's something that the Utah Judicial Council requires we do every 4 years. And as you've probably seen in the letter that Brian Jones has in your materials, we do currently meet all the qualifications. This is the last step in our process before we can send that packet off.
Great.
Do you have
Thank
any
you.
questions?
Any questions? All right, well, let's get this done for you. I know you need it.
Thank you.
Well, wait, do we need to do any council discussion? All right, we'll take a vote. Councillor McKay, yes. Councillor Whipple?
Yes.
Councillor Ellsworth?
Yes.
Councillor Fillmore?
Yes.
Councillor Handley?
Yes.
Councillor Shipley?
Yes.
And Councillor Hoban is online still. Councillor Hoban?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, that passes 7-0. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We will be continuing item number 3 to a later date. So we'll go on to item number 4, a resolution approving the appropriation of $1,313,300 in the airport fund from airport fund balance. And this will be presented by Brian Torgeson.
Thank you, Chair McKay and council. It's good to be here with you. Do we have presentation? Thank you. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and stand before you and review again this request for appropriation. But to start that, we want to make sure we review what's going on at the airport and why we're here. So you saw this last month. This is kind of a snapshot of what our commercial employments are doing since opening day of the new terminal. September was a slow month for us because we were closed for 2 weeks. So our numbers went down significantly in September. But in October, we're back to our more passengers than we've ever had. So we're up over 40,000 passengers in October. So employment, so 80,000 total passengers through the building. So not only commercial is exploding, legal, if they could stand up and attest to all of the documents that get passed back and forth because of the movement in the corporate section of the airport as well. Just so much going on at the airport. And with that growth and it provides us an opportunity where we had a pretty good excess in revenue in FY23, which, you know, based on our conversation last month. So with that, we have various projects that we've never been able to get to. And we're happy to be able to have a little bit extra revenue to get to some of those projects, but also appropriate the funding to hire 3 full-time employees to assist in access control or security badging and also in airport operations. Given our increase in schedule and things at the airport, we try really hard to cover those positions with part-time employees so we're not growing too fast. Part of that growth, as you'll remember in our budget presentation, was based on our ARF category, which we're sneaking up against that index C based on aircraft length and frequency. And so we're part of this 3 employees, at least 2 of them on the operations side will get us closer to being able to meet this when that time comes. And it's getting closer and closer. we're thinking, just based on what the airlines are telling us, early spring will be really close to this index C where we'll need additional employees. And the way we've done that is as you know, with the passage of the budget in the current budget year, we have 3 full-time fire captains that are stationed at the airport. So one of those captains are there at the airport. One of those 3 are there all the time and stationed there. And then currently, fire is filling a second position on overtime, and the way they've really staffed ARF forever at the airport. And moving forward, we worked with Chief Hedman and Chief Miguel prior to Chief Hedman in supplementing that operation with airport staff and making really a more efficient use of personnel at the airport and our ARF responsibilities. So this is just an example of one of those projects that we were excited to be able to do with some of this extra revenue. Doesn't take an engineer to tell that pavement's long gone, and it creates problems with tracking mud onto the airfield and potential hazards to aircraft. And this is just another view of some of that work that will be done next spring when weather gets not so cold again. So another one is apron lighting that was in need of replacement. This has been paid for out of our current operating budget. This appropriation will go towards getting our operating budget back whole and paying for this work. And that's all I had. So I'll go back again, just a summary of that appropriation. One thing we're excited about is a badging software system. Right now, to get a badge at the airport, security badge that lets you into the airport, you have to turn in your badge application at the airport. We do our thing and we send it off to the FBI for background checks and the like. And then those applicants have to come to customer service to get fingerprints. And then we send them back to the airport for a class. And then they come back to the city center to pick up their badge. And so this part of the security badging office space that you'll see here, we'll be adding office space and consolidating that process so that our airport users aren't being sent back and forth in the city so many times to get that access. That's so important for them to do their jobs. So with that, I'll take any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Brian? Councilor Shipley.
Brian, I know we talked about it a little bit in the work meeting, but for the sake of the public, can you speak to the parking toll system upgrade?
Yeah. So we had 2 black eyes over the past year at the terminal, at least from my perspective, just based on number of the input that we received from our customers. And one was the parking, the other was a de-ice pad. And that came really from our airline partners. We fixed both of those. We're currently in the process of expanding the de-ice pad to allow for independent operations of multiple aircraft, which will help delays significantly. But then also the parking toll system, we went with a vendor that was low bidder and felt like had given us a decent proposal and something that would work. But we gave it a year and it really didn't perform, and we had problem after problem keeping that operational. And so we've replaced that system with one that's more widely used. They have local maintenance and much better responses as far as dealing with issues. So we're already seeing, improvements there, processing time much quicker, a lot less issues that our personnel's having to deal with.
Councilor Whipple.
I didn't quite catch one of the things you said before. A de-ice pad?
A de-ice pad. So that's
de-ice pad.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm with you now. We're good.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you so much, Brian. Any council discussion on this item? All right. We'll call for a vote. Councilor Whipple.
Yes.
Councilor Ellsworth.
Yes.
Councilor Fillmore.
Yes.
Councilor Handley.
Yes.
Councilor Shipley.
Yes.
Councilor Hoban.
Yes.
And that is unanimous, 7-0. I didn't vote. Counselor McKay, yes. That is unanimous, 7-0. All right, thank you. Next, an ordinance amending Provo City Code Section 1503.020 regarding general development standards 2024 updates. This is citywide application by David Day, our Assistant City Engineer.
Thank you. Am I live yet? I have a short presentation for you, and then we'll have questions if you have any. So the ordinance text amendment is really small. The actual change to the city code is just the 23 to 24 in the code, but that code references those documents. And so those documents have about 39 pages that are changed in them. So that's what we're looking at. Here are all of the documents that we reference in that code. The top left are the two that we are adjusting in our proposal tonight. Out of those 39 changes in our standard drawings, 29 pages were just edited, 2 pages were added, and 3 pages were removed. In the development design standards, 6 pages were edited. So, and all of these changes were suggestions by contractors, engineers, developers, public that said, hey, this doesn't make sense, or we want to fix this to make it better. So here are some of those changes. If you want to look at in more depth, I can do that. Most people's eyes go, hey, move on. So stop me if you're interested, and I can look at these deeper. Brian may stop me. Oh, he left. Dang. Oh, well. Those were the removed ones. And that's the end of it. Any questions?
Thank you, David. Any questions for David? All right, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
We will open this item up for public comment. Is there any public comment on this item? All right, any council discussion? All right, let's take a vote. Councilor Ellsworth.
Yes, thank you, David Day.
Councilor Fillmore.
Yes.
Councilor Handley.
Yes.
Councilor Shipley.
Yes.
Councilor Hoban.
Yes.
Councilor McKay, yes. Councilor Whipple.
Yes.
So that is unanimous, 7-0. Brian, I forgot to ask for public hearing on the last item on the appropriation for the airport fund. Do we need to redo that?
Yes, you should open it for public comment and just see if you get any, and if, and then we can address it from there if you get any comments.
Okay. I would like to go back and open the airport funding to public comment. If anybody would like to give public comment towards that airport funding, now is your chance. All right, no public comment. We good?
No, you're good.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I missed that. All right, next, an applied motion on an ordinance amending Provo City Code Section 1434-480 regarding sidewalk cafes. And this is a citywide application that will be presented by Aaron Ardmore.
Thank you, Council. We had a chance to talk about this this afternoon. To reiterate, this was a kind of a team effort between Parks and Recreation, Downtown Provo Inc., and Provo Planning Department. So the idea behind this was to improve consistency with the sidewalk cafes downtown and to clarify responsibility. So you'll see here the changes that were made. Kind of 2 options for safe setbacks from the street for these sidewalk cafes, safe height for any awning umbrellas on some of those tables. And then you could see in 1F and 2F, just clarifying the responsibility
of maintaining and keeping clean these areas from the cafe owners and operators. And then the last bit gives staff a tool to enforce any furniture left out during the winter during snow removal. This was at Plan Commission last month and was recommended for approval 6-0. And that's all I have on this one.
Thanks, Aaron. All right. Any questions for Aaron? Oh, he knew you wouldn't have any. All right, we will open this item up for public comment. Is there any public comment? All right, seeing no public comment, we'll open this up for council discussion. All right, we're going to take a vote. Councillor Fillmore.
Yes.
Councillor Handley.
Yes.
Councillor Shipley.
Yes.
Councillor Hoban.
Yes.
Councillor McKay, yes. Councillor Whipple.
Yes.
And Councillor Ellsworth.
Yeah.
That is unanimous 7-0. Next, an implied motion ordinance enacting the Agritourism Overlay Zone. This is citywide application, again presented by Aaron Ardmore.
Okay, thank you. Again, we talked about this afternoon. So this application is for a new overlay zone from Development Services. Now, the way this came about was there's initial application to do a text amendment to the agricultural zone to allow new uses, specifically event centers and things like that. As that moved through Plan Commission and City Council, the direction was given to not change the agricultural zone, but to come up with this overlay that could be applied to agricultural zones. If you could quickly bring up the maps. Now, while that application that kind of started this off was with one property, I think this map that's going to be brought up kind of helps us understand that this is much larger than any one property. So we tried to respect the residential areas around the agricultural zones and tried to create regulations that would respect the timing, the noise, any adverse impacts. There's those maps. So you can see in these areas, everything in green is agricultural zone. So within reason, if there's minimum standards for lot size and things like that. But these are all areas that could potentially apply this agritourism overlay. So it's important to respect all these areas as we look towards these regulations. Going back to my other slides, if you could. There's some specific points I wanted to pull out of this. There's design standards, like I said, minimum lot area of 5 acres. That was done there's some properties in the city, that are non-conforming as to acreage. And we didn't want some of those like 8,000 square foot lots to try to put an event center behind the house. So that's where that came from. And we wanted to make sure that these uses are ancillary. The commercial tours, educational classes, museums, and event halls, that's ancillary to the agricultural use on the property. And as I mentioned before, most of these are surrounded by residential neighborhoods. So we tried to limit hours of operation and put on additional requirements for event halls to make sure that those neighbors weren't bothered by these new uses. So it went through Plan Commission recently last month and was recommended for approval 6-0. And if you have any questions, I'll try to answer those.
Thanks, Aaron. Any questions for Aaron? Councillor Whipple.
Yeah, so I had asked earlier about the definition of non-architectural metal, and you referred me to chapter 1406, but I don't see a definition in there.
Yeah, and that's a problem because I went through the code after as well, and that term is used numerous times throughout Title 14. So that is homework for staff to come up with a definition for. Essentially, it's not your typical metal panel or corrugated metal. It's more of architectural metal, which is kind of a a development term, but we do need to define it in Title 14. And that's a next step, not just only for this, but for a lot of different sections in the code.
Okay, I mean, I have to say I'm a little uncomfortable adopting something with an undefined term. I don't know that I feel better knowing that we're already using this undefined term in the code.
Right.
And when I tried looking up non-architectural metal, I got things like pipes and stuff like that, but like metal banisters or railings, those are architectural metal. And I'm like, I don't think this is how the city is using this term. So that makes little lawyer me deeply uncomfortable right now.
Fair.
Any other questions for Aaron? Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah, just to address that, it's already on our minds. So, I'm working on a definition for that, and you'll see that amendment coming forward, whatever happens with this.
All right, I'd like this, open this item up for public. Do you have a question for Aaron, Bill?
Aaron, if you would. I see that you removed the time regulation. You tell me what the thinking was on that.
We removed it out of the when security would be enforced or when security would be required. We figured the hours of operation above in 090 takes care of that. So if there's any amplified music or if alcohol is consumed at the event, that's going to be the trigger for security to be on site, and regardless of what time that event is held.
Okay. Good, I understand now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'd like to open this item up for public comment.
Hi, I'm Barry Finch. I live in Provo, and this is our project that we're talking about. I'll move fast. We're happy with the progress. I think this is the best thing that's happened for farmers for a long, long time, and it makes you wonder, had this happened 3 decades ago, how much open space would still be here. So I commend you for that. I do think, however, that the staff and the Planning Commission have moved away from what you guys pitched to us 3 months ago. I remember specifically Ms. Whipple or Councilwoman Whipple referring to some of the restrictions that were on when we were trying to apply for an amended code. She referred to them, said, be careful because some of these are costly and could hurt the viability of your business. And she referred to them as unnecessary restrictions. In my mind, they are unrestricted. For us, when we came here 3 months ago, they had one code in there referring to the parking lot situation, one code, and it only talked about the number of stalls that would be required. And so we have plenty of space to put the number of stalls, and that's what we felt was comfortable. We never even brought that up. That was not a discussion 3 months ago. Now they've actually added codes. So now, and get this, I'm gonna be off a little bit, but pretty close. On the summer solstice, I have to have enough shade trees on my parking lot that 40% of the parking lot has shade for at least 4 hours a day. That's one of the restrictions that I have to follow. The parking lot that I want to build would be gravel. It seems to fit the agricultural norms. It seems to fit for Jakers over here in Springville that will have 1,000 guests at a time, and they pull up on an old farm building foundations with gravel on top of it. And we're asked to put in a $200,000 parking lot. It would cost us at least that. Remember, these are large, we're trying to help farmers here. And our buildings are coming in, our new business would be in an existing farm situation where, and you've been there, we have a pile of concrete right now that is big as Mount Timpanogos. We got to haul that off. It will cost us $100,000 to do that. If we're asked to put a parking lot in, this will double that and probably more because we would have to put landscaping and everything. I want to landscape what's beautiful and where the guests will be and let the parking be out here. Imagine a situation if you were going to buy a house and you picked 3 houses, $1 million, $1 million, $1 million. But they said, well, but this one, the driveway costs $250,000.
You know, that's what we're looking at. We're putting in a really nice building. We're going to do a safe thing. We're doing it all enclosed on our building. We're going to keep the sound code, yet we have restrictions of putting a $200,000 or $250,000 parking lot. It just is a budget killer. It would eliminate us from being able to do this project. We have time restrictions. I know we live in a neighborhood, but we also have one sound ordinance for the city. We will be responsible to fit that or comply with that. If we don't, we're out. The first question I had to my builder, do you have complaints or concerns from your people who have built these buildings with noise? She said, you're the first person that's ever asked me this, because we're building a really high-end building. If we violate the sound code, we violate it and hold us accountable on it. But don't restrict our hours of operation. If you're booking a party and you can get till midnight over here and you have to pay the same fee for 9 o'clock over here, it puts us at a disadvantage.
Okay, Mr. Finch, your time is really up.
Thank you. Thanks, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
My name is Parker Moses. I'm also from Provo. I'm the contractor for Barry Finch, and I just want to put my 2 cents in on the issue to second everything that he's said, and also say that as someone who, myself and my demographic, I'm 28 years old. I got married earlier this year, and attending a lot of events and receptions, I've noticed that in Provo, since there is limited options with the high volume of marriages, people are opting for other things like backyard wedding venues and things like that. And I've noticed these streets are super crowded, and these people that live in these areas where people are opting to have backyard wedding receptions, it's imposing on them. And so when he presented the idea to me to build his own event center, I was ecstatic that we would have more options to do this. And of the few event centers that I've been to, a lot of them have had gravel parking areas, and especially on something like an agricultural area, when you have it paved and you're spending the money on that, there's dirt, there's mud, and it keeps it really dirty, becomes a hazard and a safety concern. Any big commercial construction site you go to, they have a row of cobblestone rocks as you're leaving, with the intention of getting all the mud and debris out of your tires before you get onto the asphalt and drive away. If we pave this and we have this farmland and it's
Recording in progress.
All right, thank you. We will now open this up for council discussion. Councilor Fillmore. I'd like to invite Aaron to respond to the objections raised by Mr. Finch.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit today in study session. Because of the number of spaces required, the organization of those spaces, the striping, track out with mud and gravel. For all those reasons and more, staff looked at that option and decided to stick with the paved requirements in 1437. Again, this is bigger than one applicant that might ask for this overlay zone, and we feel that was most appropriate. I think if the decision was moving towards not requiring that parking standard, development services would have to look at whether we want to keep this application moving forward as we are the applicant. I think we feel pretty strongly about that.
Any more discussion?
Yeah,
Thanks,
sorry.
Aaron.
There was also the time
Oh, sorry.
Time
Yeah.
of operation.
Yeah, the
to
time-
Bill's question.
The time I think is even less of an issue. If you look at the county regulation for their agritourism, they're 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday. Pretty typical hours for neighborhood noise and events like that. And I don't see any reason to change that. Downtown was referenced. There's event halls downtown. There's the expectation downtown that there's going to be noise at night. There's going to be people at night. I live near downtown. I knew what I was getting into. I expected these things. When you move out to the suburbs, you expect a little bit more quiet and privacy, I believe.
I know I used to live by Seven Peaks and they'd get special event permits to do parties. It was horrific. You know, they'd go to midnight, 1. It was horrible. You know, your kids couldn't nap. They were complaining, couldn't sleep. It was so loud. You know, so that was just my personal experience. the other cities and states, like George was mentioning, as far as the 50 feet. I am concerned about if 50 feet is far enough from structures that are not controlled by occupancy and inspectors and all those things next to an event hall with, you know, a couple hundred people and children and such. I don't know if anyone else is.
So can you make your motion?
I'd make a motion, just have staff look into the 50 feet is sufficient and consistent with other cities and states from structures that hold animals.
And I'll second that and just say that as part of that, I think the sound and the hours of operation are tied to that, right? Because if the distance is far enough, maybe you don't have as much concern about hours of operation as you do if it's closer. So if we're looking at distance, I think it's tied to hours of operation as well.
All right, any discussion on that motion? All right, we'll take a vote on that motion. Counselor Shipley.
Yes.
Counselor Hoban.
Yes.
Counselor McKay, yes. Counselor Whipple.
Yes.
Counselor Ellsworth.
Yes.
Counselor Fillmore.
Yes.
Counselor Handley.
Yes.
So that one passes 7-0. Any more discussion?
Yeah, I just want to, like, as we've been discussing this, I guess I just have this thought that maybe we're creating we have the potential here for creating an overlay zone that precludes us from having any of these, right? I mean, there's the potential of that. And so I think what both of these motions I hope will come back with is, here are lots of successful examples of overlay zones that allowed for agritourism to exist, and it's been successful, and they don't have complaints, a lot of complaints. And here's a way that Provo can accomplish this. Instead of looking at it like, what's a way that we can prevent any problems from ever happening and kind of protect ourselves and we can be as safe as we possibly can be. I don't want us to not be safe, but I want us to look at it like, how can we possibly get these? And do it the right way, but find examples of success, and then let's model that and try to make this happen in Provo.
Thanks, Dave. Any other discussion? All right, Counselor Whipple.
Yes, so I just wanted to talk about the security guard issue and to clarify my position on that. When this came to us before, you were making offerings or concessions in order to get it, and you were saying we would have 2 security guards and do all these things, even though that was in excess of what your security expert was recommending. It seems to me that what's been recommended by staff right now appears to be more in line with what your expert was recommending, which is much less than what you were originally offering, which is what I was concerned about being an unnecessary burden that you were trying to take on. So I wanted to clarify my position on that. I don't know if it's necessary for me to do a motion to get a definition of architectural. And okay, you're on that already. Okay, thanks. Okay, then I will not move on that.
All right. Counselor?
Well, I think I'd like to make a second motion that we continue this item until the
Great.
staff brings that information back.
I will second that motion. All right, let's take a vote on the motion. Counselor Hoban.
Yes.
Counselor McKay, yes. Counselor Whipple.
Yes.
Counselor Ellsworth.
Yes.
Counselor Fillmore.
Yes.
Counselor Handley.
Yes.
And Counselor Shipley.
Yes.
And that is unanimous, 7-0. All right, the next item, an applied motion on ordinance amending the zone map of approximately 16.9 acres generally located at 1069 North Geneva Road from R18 to R18 PD and authorizing a related development agreement. This is in the Lakewood North Neighborhood, and this was presented by Aaron Ardmore.
Okay, so this one, oh, no problem. It happens. We'll pull up the map here so we can all orient ourselves.
All right, thank you. So here is the property. So you've got Geneva Road on the east, 2700 west on the west, Harbor Parkway to the south, and 1210 north to the north. So this property has been open field for years and years and years, but it's been zoned R18. So nobody has taken advantage of the opportunity to subdivide these 16 acres into 8,000 square foot lots. There's a couple reasons for that. You can see in some of the pictures to the right, there's large transmission power lines running through the corridor from kind of northwest to southeast to the middle of it right here. And in addition to that, where you see some different treatment on the ground, some different landscape on the ground, that's mostly wetland. So because of those two things, the current applicant has come up with an option to use the performance development overlay to push the houses that you could have spread out through the whole 16 acres to the right, to the east, to respect those two constraints. And in doing that, the PD lets you adjust a few things, and one of those things is the use type. So he's got two single-family detached lots, 17 and 18, typical single-family lots. The rest, the other 56 lots, are twin homes. So the PD allows them to do that, allows them to propose that different use. Some of the things that staff liked about this project, the connectivity, the infill project that we have before us makes a lot of good connections. 1060 north down to 2480 west, future connection to the north, and then leaving room for a future connection out to Geneva Road. As the property to the north develops, there'll be that availability. As we looked at this in staff review and planning commission, there were some issues and concerns that we had that the applicant has addressed with proffering a development agreement. One is providing a variety of housing models. You'll see a concept here on the right of one of the housing types that could be built there. Looks like a single family home. It has two doors is the main difference that I see. But in addition to that, the development agreement currently states that there'd be at least 4 different housing models. The next was a HOA maintenance of open space. If we look at the acres and acres of open space, there's an initial concern that would just turn to weeds. So the development agreement has also proffered that there would be an HOA and that they'd maintain those things, keeping most of this to the west open, natural, trimming back adjacent to the street and sidewalks. And then these 2 open areas would be more your typical open space that you see in the subdivision. Also, it caps the development at 58 units. There were concerns from the neighborhood and planning commission that sure, we zone it now, can they come back and mitigate these wetlands and build here? The development agreement would tell you no, you have to stay no more than those 58 units, and that gave comfort to development services. The one remaining factor is the owner occupancy. This has come up in planning commission and again in study session today. We think that this development, where it's located, the type of product would be ideal for owner occupancy as that missing middle housing, a little more attainable, to use Councilor Ellsworth's words earlier, not necessarily affordable, because what is, but more attainable than a single family detached home. So that's an issue that's still out there. But we like this. We are recommending approval of it. The planning commission recommended approval 4-2. The 2 dissenting votes were mainly because of that owner occupancy question that hasn't been addressed. But that's all I have on this presentation.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Is the developer here?
Yes.
Okay, great. We'd love to have you accessible. So I know we'll have questions for you. That was wonderful. Thank you. Any questions for Aaron? Counselor Shipley.
So what would Development Services and the Planning Commission have them proffer to support owner occupancy?
In the past or in other examples, solutions have been put forth through CCNR's Code of Covenants and Restriction tied to the land, additional proffer in the development agreement, or even notes on the plat indicating such.
So there's different options.
There's different
is
tools
the-
to use.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Aaron? Okay, thanks, Aaron.
Yeah.
If you,
Chairman,
Oh,
sorry.
yes, Travis Hoban. I'm so sorry, Travis.
That's all right. I guess my question, maybe it's for Brian, but I thought development agreements were only enforced until the development is kind of signed off on and done. So how would a development agreement limit some of these potentially future changes?
Well, that's generally true, but most of the methods that Aaron just mentioned, what the development agreement would do is it would require those other things like the note on the plat or the CCNRs to be created and recorded. The development agreement would require those things to happen before the certificate of occupancy would be issued. And then even if the development agreement ends, those other documents are still in effect. So there's still a note on the plat, there's still recorded CCNRs. Some of those methods, there are ways that they can be changed down the road, so they may not necessarily be permanent, but they are required to be put into place before the development agreement ends. And then sometimes the ways that those things can be changed create their own obstacles to them ever being changed, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. And you'll be happy to know, Brian, that 4 years later, I now understand what CCNRs are. I don't know if you remember, but the first council meeting I ever attended, I was like, CCN what's? Now I get it. Thanks, Brian.
You're welcome.
All right, any more questions for Aaron or Brian? Counselor Whipple?
Yes. So looking at the report of action from the Planning Commission, I see that they voted 6-0 on 2 different matters with concerns that they wanted us to know about. And one of them was about owner occupancy to the city council, and the other was to address the natural spring. And so first I want to know that the applicant and the developer know about these concerns and they've had time to think over possible solutions or what they would want to tell us in order to address this concern that the Planning Commission gave to us. And he nodded, so I think that's answered. But my next question is, I don't know what this means, address the natural spring. I don't know how they're addressing it. Like, are they saying, hello, spring, I write you a letter, you are lovely. Or are they planning to build some sort of structure there or make it like a park? I don't know what that means.
From my perspective of that Planning Commission discussion, I think it had more to do with making sure a necessary setback from that natural spring. So we don't get flooding into people's yards, into people's homes. You see lots 25, 24, 38, and 39. I think that was their main concern from my recollection, is making sure there's appropriate setback, and if not, maybe adjusting that.
Okay, so it's to leave the area open, and if it gets super boggy and floody, then it won't flood the neighboring houses. But it's not necessarily turning that into an amenity that's in the heart of this development.
No, that wasn't really a topic of discussion.
Okay, I mean, you got a spring there. Let's use it.
That's a good idea.
The next question that I have is about the open area that's, this huge chunk of the property. And I understand that the HOA is going to maintain that in some way, but I don't know what that means. If they'll just go through with big farm equipment and mow it once a year, if it'll be like a meadow or a parkscape. I'm really curious because it seems like that could be a really lovely space for the people who will be living there. It'll be nice for the existing neighbors to still have that open. And I'm just really curious what your plans are for this and to keep it as a sustainable thing that doesn't turn into, like the rodent population home, which is probably is right now. So I'd love to know what open space means and what the vision is for maintaining that going forward.
I'll let the applicant address that.
Yeah. Thank you, Aaron. You please just give your name.
Absolutely. Name is Garrett Seeley, representing the Waits who own this property. So to answer a few of those questions. So number one, the spring that's in the middle of the property, we did plan around that. The other concern that came up is they didn't want to have basements. This area, the groundwater is substantially high, and so there wouldn't be any basements. And so we'll make sure that that doesn't happen to mitigate. So there is a manifold system that will be designed that if and when it does bubble up, because this is the first time in 27 years that it has bubbled up, that there will be a system there to collect and push it to the right direction. And so that system will be in place with the final drawings. So those are to answer that. To maintain the natural open area. So there are some rules and regulations that you have to adhere by with wetlands. Although they're not jurisdictional wetlands, they're going to be more of a maintained wetland. You can't just go in there specifically because the machinery will bog down because it's wet and mucky, right? And so we'll try to keep it the way it is currently, but we will have to keep a lot of the weeds down along the trail or along the road and sidewalks and that type of area so that there's clear view and it's clean and kept that way. But the majority of it will be kept the way it is, natural. Because of that, you have the natural bird habitat, ducks, geese, whatever you have that are naturally there will continue to be there.
That sounds like a good thing to like bring in a little herd of sheep or something, since they won't get bogged down.
I understand you have a deer problem. Maybe we can put those down.
I know.
Sorry.
So would you have any like trails set up in that area? Like, would you anticipate people walking in there using it, or will it just be, that pretty open wet thing that they get to see?
I don't anticipate a lot of usage. I think it'll be more of a gazing, bird watching. A lot of the residents that came to Planning Commission were very happy to maintain that as is because they enjoy that open space. They enjoy looking out at it, and that's what we plan on doing.
Thank you. Counselor Handley.
I'm just wondering if what your thoughts are about what the Planning Commission's vote about owner occupancy.
So I believe it was misinterpreted. Andy Flam, who's my partner on this project, what he said was that when we sell these houses, we have no control over what is going to happen after that. Meaning that if someone gets in a hard term and they have to lease it or rent it, then they can do that. We are selling these and they are for sale for ownership. That's what we've always planned to do, and that's what we continue to plan to do. We're not selling these for rent product.
All right,
Period.
so you're not planning on keeping them, just rent them all out, or selling them
Correct.
to one person who's going to rent them all out?
We will sell them to a builder who will build them out and sell them individually.
Oh, so then that you can't guarantee that then?
Oh, there he goes. Yeah.
Andy Flam, co-applicant. I think the confusion was Garrett used to work for a company that did communities that they sold them all. And some of the planning commissioners, rightfully so, did their homework on Garrett and saw that. But also for decades, he worked for Woodside Homes, which is a for sale builder. So I think the more recent history is what kind of clouded that and got everyone a little bit confused or worried. But yeah, we are selling this to a builder that will do all homes for sale. Does that make sense?
Well,
not builders.
it's still possible that someone buys it and rents it. That's what you're saying we can't control, or you can't control.
I'm saying we are selling this to a builder that is going to sell all of the homes to individuals.
I know, but I'm saying individually, they can be sold to somebody who rents it rather than occupies it.
That could be, there's no way legally for us to control that down, two owners down the road.
Right,
I
but
understand the
initially you can control it for the CCNR saying initially the home has to be owner occupied for 1 year, for example.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we're fine with that.
You are.
Absolutely. That doesn't bother us.
Aaron, did you hear that? Well, we love you.
Yeah, that doesn't bother us at all.
Okay. Any other questions for the developer here? Travis, do you have your hand up? No? Okay, I have some comments on this real quick. I think it's awesome. I love that you're doing the townhomes. Twin homes, that's what I meant. I think the twin homes are fantastic. We need smaller square footage for people to get into homeowner occupancy, which is our huge gap in our city, right? We are very upside down with the amount of rentals we have versus items for people to buy, and especially that entry level. We need people to get in to home ownership. And this, I think, is a great entry level piece. I also think it's a great housing type for all the people around here who end up wanting to downsize and want to stay in the area. I think it's splendid. I love the open space. All these houses are going to be on green belts is amazing. What a wonderful thing for them. I like it. I was concerned for a minute that you're just having one design house, the whole thing, all 50, but I heard you're having at least 4, much better. You're going to do different colors, right? Like they'll have different color options.
Correct.
Okay.
May I add that those 4, it's going to be different floor plan sizes that are all going to be the same. So they're going to be larger, smaller.
Love it.
Different facades.
Love
different
it.
Colors.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Yes.
We have wanted so much something like this with more variety, smaller square footage. It's been very thoughtful. And I listened to the owner speak at the Planning Commission. And I love it that she cared about having the open space. I mean, she was very deliberate in her decision on this. And I thought that was lovely. And I think that she's done a great job, and I'm happy for her to get to retire. Now, are these 2 single family homes? Is the owner going to stay in one of these?
Say that again one more time.
The 2 single family lots, are those for?
17, 18. Yes. What about them again?
Are those for the owner to stay in the, okay. You just do 2 of them as single family, okay.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, they're a small lot, so they'll look very similar to what's going to be there.
Great. Okay.
Yep.
I love the it's a big deal for me that you're doing the development agreement to agree on the variety. You're doing the development agreement to agree on the open space long-term, that you're not going to up those houses when we give you the zone change. And number 3, that you're willing to do the home ownership. Because I know for me, it would be a no otherwise, but I'm so thrilled about how you're presenting this. So I think it's fantastic. You should build more stuff in Provo.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to make a comment or discussion?
Well, I just wanted to make sure that is what you're offering then, the home ownership for 1 year, or
Yes.
owner occupancy for 1 year, sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I would just echo everything she just said. So
thank you.
I feel like we should have a party.
Yeah, what I really love about this is the way you are creating a more attainable housing thing. And I mean, circumstances are why you're doing all of the open space, but that's so good.
Mm-hmm.
I would so much prefer to see, more dense units, but these will still be really comfortable. People will have space to have privacy and move and everything, but keeping almost half of that property as open space for the enjoyment of everyone around is a huge asset that I think makes all of these houses, the ones that are existing and the ones that you will build, much more desirable, because people there's just a comfort in having that space. So I am just really delighted by this project. Thank you so much.
Right. Brian, is there anything else we need to do as far as the development agreement with that owner occupancy and the CCNRs?
Well, there's 2 approaches you can take here. One would be to continue the item until and ask staff to redraft the exhibit that's the development agreement to include specifically the language that you're looking for. The other option, I think that, I'd look for Aaron's input if he disagrees with this, but I think Aaron and I are probably clear enough on what needs to be added. So if you want to go ahead and go forward tonight, what I would suggest is that instead of voting on the implied motion, somebody make a substitute motion. And let me give a bit of background before I say what the motion is. So part 1 of the ordinance says, mayor is hereby authorized to negotiate and execute a development agreement as proposed, consistent with those commitments described in the development agreement and the representations made by the applicant in the council meeting in form substantially similar to the draft. Now, I just think because of some past issues that we've had over these kinds of things, if you want to go forward tonight, what I would suggest is somebody make a substitute motion to say that you move to approve the item as written, contingent upon your understanding that the representations referred to are the things that you want in the agreement. Okay. And that way we have it clear on the record what the things to be added are.
Okay. Thank you so much. We don't want to make you wait. Are you okay if we do it this way as a substitute motion? Okay. Does that work? Does the council, that make sense? Okay. Any more discuss? Wait, we need to open this up for public comment. Is there any public comment about this item? All right. Is there any more discussion about this item before I do a substitute motion? Okay. I am going to say, I'm going to do a substitute motion on that we will approve should I just read this? Okay.
Well, so I'll say it for you and you tell me if it's your motion, but then I'll give you space to list the things. So my understanding is that you want to make a motion to approve the item as written based on your, but contingent upon your understanding that the representations of the developer of the things to be added to the development agreement are the things that you're about to list.
We are going to add to the development agreement. This is going to be for sale product with CC&Rs that require a 1-year home ownership, owner occupancy, 1-year owner occupancy.
Okay. Anything, that's the only one that needs to be added.
And that it's a for sale product.
Okay. 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 So.
Did I miss anything, guys?
Hey, Brian.
Was the spring already in?
Oh, should we mention, do we mention that they're going, I think that's already, they said that they'll be done through engineering at the different time.
Okay, but does that need to be put into the development agreement?
No, Bill's saying no.
Okay, so the spring has already been addressed satisfactorily. We've resolved planning. Wait.
Travis, you have a question too?
I was just going to ask Brian, I guess, considering they're going to be selling this to a developer or whatever we're calling it, is that enforceable, like 1 or 2 clicks out like that? Are the CC&Rs on home ownership enforceable, 1 or 2 steps away?
Well, probably. I mean, again, there's not guarantees in a lot of these things, but in this particular instance, because we're not going to issue the certificate of occupancy unless those CC&Rs are in place, the builder can't come in, buy all the property, and then undo the CC&Rs himself. The way that it could potentially be undone is if the builder comes in, builds it, we issue the certificate of occupancy, they sell all the homes, and then the majority of the homeowners vote to change it. But there's not really anything we can do about that.
And our experience with other CC&Rs in the city like that, I've dealt with 2 of them. They couldn't get the votes even close. Like it never happened.
Yeah, generally speaking, once they're already sold and you've got families in those homes, they aren't going to want that. So
yeah, that's not in their best interest. And they, bought in a community where they valued those CC&Rs.
Okay, thank you.
2 things. To add to that, I think also having that out there is going to detract any of those investment people trying to
provide rental communities. To going back to the spring, the applicant tonight has said they are not going to put in basements. They're going to install a manifold to address the natural spring. That being said on the record is in itself a proffer. So we'll be sure to include that in the revised DA.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. All right, so substitute motion clear.
I will second the substitute motion.
Okay. Let's do a vote. Counselor McKay, yes. Counselor Whipple,
Yes.
Counselor Ellsworth,
Yes.
Counselor Fillmore,
Yes.
Counselor Handley,
Yes.
Counselor Shipley,
Yes.
Counselor Hoban.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. I am so excited to watch your development. Thank you.
Can I say just how much more desirable this will be for people to live in with that owner occupant requirement? That's going to be amazing for our future residents there. Thank you so much.
All right, next, an implied motion on ordinance amending the zone map of approximately 13.06 acres generally located at 3410 West Center Street from A110 to AI and authorizing related development agreement. This is the Fort Utah neighborhood, and again, it's Aaron.
All right, so this is our last one. So this property, we talked about in study today that the property in the highlight there and the property to the west, the larger piece, were brought forward last year in 2022 to amend the general plan from residential at the time to what it is now as airport related uses. You can see the current zoning is R18 next door, even though the general plan is airport related. That's a little confusing. We anticipate that zoning will be changing as the next developer goes in contract with the property owners at Halliday's there. However, tonight we're looking at the highlighted portion. So what has been brought forward is a request for airport industrial, and this is the concept plan attached to that. And again, we have a development agreement proffered. The development agreement is addressing concerns that staff and planning commission had with open space, specifically allowing the public into that open space, use of that open space, and the trail network connecting to future trail network to the east under the bridge. The bridge was built with that in mind. This developer has it in their agreement and their plan to bring a trail through. So that would connect, and that's proffered by the developer. As well as open fencing with access through, so it wouldn't be side obscuring. And then kind of there's an exhibit C in your packet where there's kind of some specific elements to that open space plan that they're willing to commit to. That's, I believe, all I have on this, unless you have any questions for me.
Questions for Aaron? Counselor Shipley.
Yeah, just to clarify for me, when we first looked at the property next to it, when they were going to put single family homes on it, we didn't talk about flight pattern. We didn't talk about that, that was going to be a big risk to those folks that live there. And then 3 months later, we talked about how, when it was changed to a industrial, or when we changed the general plan for this spot, we said, that's good because, this is potentially flight pattern. I just want to clarify for my own sake, is this flight pattern what happened in those 3 months that changed staff's mind on whether or not this was important to have as airport industrial versus residential?
I wish I would have been the coordinator on that initial rezone, and I wish Brian from the airport was still here to address that. From what I understand, as the airport has grown and is continuing to grow, that's currently a flight pattern. But from what I understand, I don't know if David's still here, that line, that flight path is crisscrossed with the main flight path. And as airport grows, that would go away because the regulations, I don't know, that there'd be two parallel lines, flight paths. I'm not an expert on this, obviously.
But that's as much detail as I have.
Is
on
it
personally.
safe? Is it your understanding though that the flight path that will eventually be used, primarily that parallel flight path, is going over both of these parcels? I mean, these are big parcels. I don't know what a flight path even means, I guess. It's near enough to the airport. It seems like it'd be a pretty narrow flight path at this point, but I just don't know what that means.
Yeah, if I can go back to the map that zoomed out, I might have a little bit better perspective on it. Yeah, I don't feel comfortable trying to answer that, honestly. I don't have the knowledge on that.
So one runway currently has a flight path over this property. That one will eventually go away and be parallel. The new one will be parallel to the one right now that goes northwest to southeast. We don't know when that's going to happen though. I've talked to Brian Torgerson about this. That's the long-term plan, but we have no idea when that's going to happen.
Okay.
So right now, this property would be under a flight path. Eventually, it will not be.
It will not be. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't anticipate that question. Sorry.
That's okay. And I wasn't here and it's my fault for not being here during the work meeting. I've got some discussion points, but no more questions.
Any more questions for Aaron? Thank you, Aaron. And we'll open this item up for public comment. Any public comment? Okay, we will open this up for discussion. Counselor Shipley.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we need to review this again because I was in the minority a few months back when we visited about this before. I felt like the city would be able to accomplish some nice river amenities without giving into a warehouse on this property and the one adjacent to it. So I'm still in my mindset on this property is that this is along a beautiful river. It's in a beautiful area. To me, if it's not in the flight path long-term, I think it's a perfect location for some beautiful housing options. And I don't think that it's mutually exclusive to have homes there and also have good amenities for the river as well. I think it was presented 3 months ago as if there's no way if we get homes there that we're going to be able to have amenities for the river. And I just think that was a false choice. I think the reality is we could have had a nice home project on this property and create some very nice housing, some of the best housing in all of Provo in my mind. I mean, this is just one of the most gorgeous spots. And I'm a little bit, I'm prejudiced. I mean, I live, pretty close to this spot. I think it's one of the most beautiful spots in all of Provo, to be right there on the river. And so for me, I think we took away, what I thought was one of the prime spots for beautiful residential properties, and we're going to put a warehouse on it. And I think the warehouse is kind of in a prime spot from a visibility standpoint too, right? Because we've got Center Street and Geneva where they intersect here. This is kind of not Geneva, excuse me, but Center and Lakeview. I just think as we build out a lot more warehouses and industrial space out towards the airport, anything that needs to be airport industrial, and that's why I clarified the flight pattern thing. If it needs to be airport industrial, I'm fully supportive of that, obviously. But I think there was I think 3 months ago or whenever that was, I just felt like it was like, no, this is the only way we can have river amenities, and there are planes going over this property. And in my mind, that was kind of a weak argument. We can support the river. We can not have this flight pattern at some point, and have beautiful homes that I think we'd be proud of into the future. Where a warehouse, I don't think anybody's going to be proud of it. It's just functional. It's what the developer wants because that makes money right now. So for me, I'm still opposed to this project, not because this particular project doesn't do what I'm sure this particular project is a great project, but I was against the general plan change, and I'm consistent with that at this point. I'd still prefer houses on this property.
Any more discussion? Counselor Fillmore.
Yeah, I'm curious as to whether the developer has suggested any particular amenities with respect to the river, even though it's commercial, not residential.
He has. Would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, I'm Norm Avery, and so we're the developer out there, and so we have had a lot of discussions on the amenities that go along the river. And so we really like the layout that's up there on the river right now on that whole north end. And so all the amenities, the outlook areas, the picnic areas, the workout areas, the trails and the trail connections, it blends right in with the river. And it's neat. It's a good deal, and we've committed to that. We've put those things in the development agreement so that we can follow through with those and get them in the agreement.
And to be clear, it was one picnic area, one lookout point, and 3 workout areas, correct?
In just that one area
Yeah.
right there, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions for the developer while he's up here? Oh, I was wrong. Oh, 3 lookout areas, 3 workout areas, and 1 picnic area. So I was wrong on the lookout or outlook. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I am sympathetic to your concern. Looking at that picture of the field is gorgeous. And I've driven out to that point and walked that area, and it's really beautiful. Do you want to continue it to get more airline information? Counselor Ellsworth.
Yeah, one of my concerns, regardless of the land use, is the trail's proximity to a parking lot. So if you were to be on the Provo River Trail by Macy's, you're just enjoying a big old parking lot. And I just wish that, it's probably not in our code yet, but I wish that we were orienting parking away from these natural spaces people are trying to enjoy. Yeah, if the developer had the ability to remove parking per our code, I wish that was one of the things that we had thought of, or the planning commission had advised on. Yeah, it's something that I think about is making a trail an amenity, not just a strip of pavement in a site development, right? So that's one comment I had.
Counselor Whipple.
It's interesting because my thought was almost the opposite of that. And that is that they've got parking spots there and they're having these trails for public access. And would they allow somebody to drive in and park there so then they could enjoy the trail that they've built and things like that? Which is kind of funny that I'm looking at it in the complete opposite way.
Yeah.
And honestly, I love that the Provo River Trail goes by Macy's because I can hop on it from work and ride this lovely trail and then hop to the grocery store, get a lunch. I mean, on its own, that's not necessarily a bad thing. If the whole trail were just by a parking lot, yes, that would be bad. But connecting it to things that are useful, I think is really good. Yes.
Yeah, so just to build on what you're saying there's a lot of room for us to still come up with details that will improve access to the trails, and we're certainly going to make sure that the public has full access to that. And so there's a lot of things that we can still do with input from the staff and stuff to make that very nice.
Counselor Fillmore.
I guess I just say I'm increasingly sensitive to Counselor Shipley's concern. I'm very much in favor of economic development. I want to be totally supportive of our airport's expansion and development for all that can do for the city. But I'm aware that there's just a plethora of potential industrial sites available in this area, other parcels, whereas this is kind of prime potential residential property. And I understood at one point in time that this was targeted for residential and that the plans changed to commercial. I'm curious why that happened, if I'm correct in that understanding.
The input that I know of was the concern with the airport and increased traffic was the noise. And so the discussions that we heard in, especially in the planning commission and from people in the community is the planes go out over that area, you're going to have a lot of complaints with the noise from the airplanes. That's the only input that I would have.
Okay, thank you.
If I could add some additional context to your question. I think there's another factor in that discussion of general plan change, where this is kind of an isolated area of the city between kind of cut off by the river and two arterial roads. It's just this little cordon off section of West Provo, where it didn't really feed into other neighborhoods. I think that was another factor when the council and the plan commission talked about the general plan change.
So you're suggesting it doesn't really lend itself to a nice residential development?
I was just saying that it's cut off from adjacent residential neighborhoods by two pretty heavy volume streets. And there wasn't a lot of connectivity there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Aaron, are we looking at this map? Is the new park just to the north or?
No, that's over on Lake Shore.
Lake Shore, right. Okay, thank you.
Hello. Can I make a comment? This is Keith Morey. I'm the Economic Development Director. Just maybe Councilmember Fillmore, in response to your comments about economic development opportunities. To me, there's some clear boundaries that exist on the west side. Lakeview Parkway, I think, is one. The river is one. And to see this turn into some industrial space, which is probably the highest most needed commercial use in the valley right now. I mean, the vacancy rate in commercial space like this, industrial warehouse space, is like 1% or less. So there's a huge demand for that. And in your comment that Provo has a lot of other options, I don't know that I necessarily would agree with. I mean, if some of the other people on the west side of Provo stopped farming and decided to develop it, maybe that could be the case. But currently, there isn't a suggestion that that's going to happen. And so because Provo City doesn't have a several 100-acre industrial park, for example, an opportunity like this to turn this into some highly, profitable property tax, commercial tax base, I think is important. From my perspective, the growing burden that we're going to see in Provo City to maintain the residential services for our community on the backs of residents is going to become increasingly difficult. We're already seeing some tension in retail sales. And so if we can't find ways to offset that with opportunities like this, commercial opportunities, so that we don't end up having to put that burden of public services on the backs of our residents, I think it could be difficult in the future. And so when I look at this and I see the opportunity to try to shift the paradigm a little bit from Provo so that the 52% property that we have in Provo that doesn't pay property tax begins to shift a little bit to highly performing property that does generate some good tax value for us to support the city services that we have, I think it's a good thing for us.
Well, I always appreciate your perspective, Keith, and we certainly need to make economic development a priority. So please help us get that 100-acre plus industrial park. Sooner. If we can find a place for that, that would be ideal.
Councilor Shipley.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to business owners in Provo, probably less than Keith has by a long ways, but a few of them say, yeah, we need more industrial. We need a lot of more space for different things in Provo. I guess I would zoom out on this map and say that we've got a lot of things that we've already said around the airport. This is for airport industrial, and we've got a lot of farmland that still can build warehouses all over around the airport. This isn't the only spot. This isn't even close to the only spot. We've zoned and pre-zoned a lot of area around the airport for industrial, and I'm glad we have. I think that's a good use, for all the space that's in the vicinity of the airport. Yeah, Again, I don't want to belabor this because this was a vote we did, on the general plan change, 3 or 4 months ago. And like I say, I was just more interested in making sure the public and the council knew why I would vote again no tonight, because I don't think this is best use of this particular parcel and property. And I don't think that the explanation months ago about why we need to do this for the sake of amenities for the river was, it didn't feel very genuine to me, because I thought it was a false choice. I just thought we could have a nice residential project here and still have amenities on the river that we'd be proud of. It wasn't, hey, if we do residential here, we're not going to have any good amenities for the river, so we need to do this, warehouse on this property. I felt like that was my choice months ago when we looked at it from a general plan perspective, and I didn't agree with that choice. So,
Counselor Handley.
Well, yeah, I do remember being very torn about this, but I will say though, Mr. Shipley, I'm having a hard time imagining with residential development how we would have had a corridor that large that was available to the public if we had zoned that all for residential. I mean, I don't know, maybe this is all water under the bridge anyway.
And it definitely wasn't platted with that much space. Like this was a value add for amenities for the river based on our previous plan. I'm just saying that plan was up to us, right? We could have rejected that plan and said, now let's go back to the drawing board and give more space to the river, but with houses instead. So.
Counselor Whipple.
Yeah, I recall from that earlier conversation too, like the fencing was an issue. So we were told that if it was going to be residential, they'd have to have like a solid wall fence so nobody would see the river, I think is a safety issue. And then with the other development, there would be ability to access the river because you wouldn't have the same kind of safety concerns with it being an industrial thing as you would being a residential thing. That was my recollection of that discussion. I'm actually kind of sad that the other project that we talked about on the neighboring parcel has fallen through. I'm still thinking about what I think about this one.
Can I just don't, sorry, I was just going to say, I don't know of anywhere, and I'm generalizing, right? But I don't think of industrial warehouses as a safer public space than residential and nice homes. I would just say that, like maybe access would be different. We'd have to be creative about access. We might have to be creative about how we give space again to the river and the amenities there. But if you think about cities around this country and the warehouse space that they have, that's not usually the most secure, publicly accessible, beautiful area of a city. And I think we're talking about, and again, this is me being prejudiced because I love the West Side. This is a beautiful spot. This really is. It's right. It's right on the river. It's a beautiful spot. So.
Any more discussion?
Chair McKay.
Yes, Counselor Hoban.
I'll just say more broadly, I think you guys recall I voted against a warehouse as opposed to residential. I can't remember when that was. And so I just think in general, I still have that same feeling that we need homes more than we need another warehouse right now. And that might feel short-sighted. So I would be more supportive of residential in this area just based on need. So I'll just leave that there. I don't know, if that changes anything, if it's too late to change or what. We'd have to go back and revisit the general plan, it sounds like, which I would be willing to do if there was support for that.
Well, technically, it is A1 right now. It is AI. It is A1, so it's still agricultural right now.
So the zone's agriculture,
Yeah.
but the general plan calls airport related. Yep.
Any more discussion? Right, should we take a vote on the implied motion?
Seems like there's a fair amount of indecision on the council. Maybe we had a punt for a couple weeks. Would that change anybody's mind? Is there any information we need to secure to achieve greater certainty on this, or what?
Counselor Handley.
Well, I mean, I feel like I need to go back and listen to our own meeting. I thought we had that discussion. We were waiting for the development agreement. I mean, I guess it's just a little bit long, and it was long enough of a wait that it's kind of the details and the particulars have become a little gray for some of us, for me anyway. Right, but that's what we're talking about. We were waiting for the development agreement to come back so that we made the final decision on the.
So in 2022, the decision was made to amend the general plan from residential to airport related. Anticipating a project like this would come along. A full concept plan was shown at that time as an example of what that general plan change could get you. But this is the first time that you've heard the zone change relative to the development agreement.
Okay, well, that was what you were saying 3 months ago, and I was like, that was throwing me off. I was like, I have a really bad memory. Okay, so it was at least a year ago. All right. Okay, all right. And all we did was discuss the general plan change. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, just one other comment. The property to the west, as far as we know, that is still going to move forward, because we have to provide connections in a couple of different areas with our project to that one. So yeah, we're kind of going backwards, I guess.
Going forward, so we heard that it had fallen through.
Yeah.
but
They're having to reorganize, I guess, a little bit with what they're doing. But as far as we know, they're still trying to move forward with that.
Yeah, from what we understand, there's a new developer that is putting it under contract. It may or may not be under all the way, but that's what we're hearing as we discuss it with them. The other thing I was going to point out.
Could we get your name, please?
Sorry, Heath Johnston.
Thank you.
Developer here. Is that when we came to you about a year ago, it was discussed at great length and decided that the general plan would be changed to allow this type of stuff. And so that's what we've done, and tried really hard to make it open for people to be able to use the river. Flight plan, just the general area. We feel this is a very good thing. We have invested an enormous amount of time after that. And so we would hope you would consider to follow the general plan change. I can't even begin to tell you the amount of money and time spent on this under that premise that we received that vote through your council. So
Could we ask you a question? I remember on that other development, they were going to make a point of doing some mixed use and putting some food places or that in their industrial park. Is that something you guys have thought about?
As of right now, we haven't. They were talking to different people that would end up being end users. As far as us, ours are mainly people that want to be close to the airport and also to move merchandise. You know, we live in a world now where everything's dropped off on our door. And so there's not just the Amazon buildings, but the buildings that feed the Amazon buildings. Being close to the airport really does help us, and do that for the whole community, close to the freeway. And so this is a perfect piece for that. And so we fully agree with what was decided with the general plan amendment for that. I just want to also make sure you know that whenever you do houses, and we do that at times, the backyards get the best value to be up against the water. And then you pull back and you put trails and stuff there. This actually does give more connectiveness to the community and be able to get back in there. And so that's a great thing. The other thing is noise. This is a next best thing to residential for sound and everything else. People work and then they go home. So it's a great product, and the city needs it. Utah County needs it.
Another question I just thought of, what in the development agreement, Aaron, is there a distance they have to be from the river? Do you have to give like so much easement to public use? Or is there anything dictating how much space that is?
So there's floodplain requirements, distance from the river in code. This site plan is attached to the development agreement. So there's dimensions there. You could scale it off that. So that would be a secondary governing thing, but the first one is the floodplain distance requirements. The standard is 100 feet. They can make application to get closer with our floodplain manager, showing certain things, but the minimum distance by code is 100 feet to start.
Counselor Whipple.
One more thing I wanted to point out. If you look at the north end of the property, there's unusual parking stalls, which we put in for the benefit of those that maybe visit, and we exceed the parking requirements by quite a bit. And that was under the impression that we didn't want our businesses to suffer for the people that would park there and go. I'm a biker and I often ride to a parking area because I don't want to get killed by cars, which is kind of a problem these days. And then I get on the trail. And so that's the other thing, is that people could drive there and connect in, and whether hiking, biking, or whatever.
I did notice that. I thought that you did it that way for that reason, which is great. Counselor Whipple.
Okay, so I've got two questions. I think one is for the developer and the other maybe for Aaron or some other city person. The first one is, I can see, the little trail that you've got on the perimeter of the property. How wide is that trail? 7 feet, 10 feet?
It's a 10-foot trail.
Okay, it's just, I can't bigify it to see that. Okay.
It's in the development agreement. We cover
Okay.
that kind of stuff.
The other question I have is, how much of our airport traffic is shipping goods as opposed to how much of it is passenger flights? Do we know that, and do we anticipate a change in that? So for our airport, how much of the volume of flights going through there is about shipping goods, for which these airport industrial uses are beneficial, and how much of it is passenger, for which this would mean nothing?
I'm sorry, I would have no idea on this.
Okay,
I
sorry.
apologize.
It would have been good if I'd thought of this question earlier, right?
Can I ask a question?
Counselor Ellsworth.
Yeah, I'm just putting together some of the comments and the timeline. So prior to adopting the new general plan, we had arranged for this to be a future land use of industrial. Then we adopted a new general plan, and the new general plan has this as a future land use of residential. Is that correct?
So I've got a slide here. to
Because I
show you.
opened it and it shows residential
General plan.
in our 23 general plan.
And on the west side plan, it says the residential.
So this
The general
is-
plan's bigger than the.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying.
But before or after we adopted the 23 general plan?
So this is from the current GIS layer. So that dark brown is airport related, and the light brown is residential, green's agricultural.
That's current or future land use?
This is current general plan.
Okay, and the general plan is the future land use map.
Right.
Yes, okay. So.
Yeah.
I was looking at a map, maybe.
So if we have a PDF online that is not matching this, I will see to that gets corrected.
Okay, because it's different.
Okay.
This is the future land use map, unless this is a draft that we have since edited.
I think.
This
what
says
could have
final draft
happened-
for consideration for approval.
I think what could have happened is the simultaneous progress of that general plan amendment and the 2023 general plan going forward at the same time, not talking to each other. So I could see how that could occur, but we'll get that fixed as staff.
Okay, but for my own clarification, we didn't address this specifically when we were adopting the general plan. We did address
2023
this
general plan.
specifically in a separate process.
Correct.
Where the majority vote was for industrial at that time.
Right.
Okay, sorry. Thanks for helping me map that out.
Counselor Handley.
Yeah, I apologize for my own personal confusion, but I think in light of everything, I'm recollecting and you're helping me remember, it was a difficult vote. I wasn't super confident that there was an easy answer, but I don't in good conscience want to make these developers have gone through this last year for nothing. I think it would be unfair, to suddenly switch our ideas for this property. And I think the access that they've granted to the river follows the guidance that we had given them. And it may not be everything that I, felt unambiguously happy about, but I think it's something that in good conscience I can't reverse at this point. And I think I'm willing to support what's being offered here because it will preserve enough of that access to the river and the beauty of the river to my satisfaction.
Any more? Counselor Shipley?
Yeah, I just think we should vote. I apologize I just wanted to describe or explain publicly why I was going to vote against it again, but I fully expected this to pass with perhaps myself and Travis still voting against it for the same reasons that we voted against it when we looked at it for the general plan. So I wasn't trying to, dissuade anybody here. I thought I could just describe why I was going to vote against it again and we could move on.
All right. Are we ready to take a vote?
Councilor or Chair McKay.
Yes, Councilor Hoban.
I would just say I can appreciate where Councilor Hanley's coming from, but I would also say that a lot changes in a year. And I think we've had a lot change in the housing market, which I think could justify and compel us to, take back what we said a year ago type thing. But yeah, there's just some food for thought there that a lot has changed and there is significant demand in the housing market. So I would still support building housing, making that residential.
Okay, Councilor Fillmore. Chair McKay, I think Mr. Moore had a comment. Mr. Moore.
I'm sorry not to belabor this. I was just going to make a point of clarification. There's been some comments about the river, and just remember that a large portion of the water that's in the river in this section was diverted north to the June Sucker program, all that work that was done out there. So I'm not saying that this isn't going to be an amenity, but it's not going to be the same type of amenity that it's been in the past. I mean, that water flow is going to be significantly reduced. It's going to be a much different environment in the future.
Yeah, we've received some complaints about that. Okay. We're going to call for a vote on the implied motion. Councilor Whipple.
Yes.
Councilor Ellsworth.
No.
Councilor Fillmore. This is a close call for me, but I'm going to vote yes. Councilor Handley.
Yes.
Councilor Shipley.
No.
Councilor Hoban.
No.
I hate being the same vote. Councilor McKay, yes. All right, that passes 4-3. Okay, if there are no objections, we will now adjourn the Provo Municipal Council meeting by unanimous consent.